Hi, welcome to the Wave podcast. This is a show where we are going to be talking about topics relating to freelance audio and music production without getting too lost in the weeds and too technical. My name's Seamus,
My name is Andrew.
and today we're going to be talking about how to build personal relationships with your clients because they're not just the people who pay your bills. I think it's important that they're your friends as well.
Absolutely.
Andrew, you want to get me started off on how you approach, new people?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Um, sometimes, it helps knowing the person maybe a bit in advance. A lot of the people that I have worked with have been people that I maybe not know personally, but have been around and hung out with in groups before. But like brand new people, definitely like standard introduction. I try not to be too formal. I feel like there's a line between being way too formal or way too casual. And you
I
can kind
agree.
of read that based on the responses that you get, like facial expressions. And I don't know, it's kind of like a natural adherence kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, I agree about not being too formal. I think especially in a creative venture, people want to be comfortable.
yeah,
And the more formal you are, the harder it is for people to just be genuine and comfortable with you. Because this
so
is like,
true.
I think music is so emotional that you have to emotionally connect with the people that you're working on, or it's hard to fully open up.
Yeah. You have to learn to be a good hang in that way. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Have good
Yeah.
conversation, kind of
Well,
open up a little bit. It's almost like a emotional, vulnerable kind of thing to some
yeah,
degree.
yeah, being a good hang is one of the most important things because you're stuck in a room with these people for hours sometimes. If they don't want to be around you, then they're not gonna fucking hang around you. They're gonna
Yeah.
find somebody else. I mean, if you are a good hang and you're a less talented engineer, I feel like you'll still get more business than the better engineer who's terrible at socializing.
Oh, 100%, man. Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, what do you think constitutes being a good hang? Like, what are some things you do to make people feel comfortable in your space?
I definitely allow them to make themselves at home. There's not too much that I demand, I suppose, when coming in. Those are kind of things that I stay away from, like demands, if you will.
Yeah.
Try and keep conversation rolling. When certain topics come up, if I know about it and I'm kind of familiar with it, then I try and like dive deep into it and be genuine and kind of raw.
Yeah.
It's certain topics definitely should kind of stay out of the window, I guess, out of the door, because it can kind
All
of
the all
cause some
the
problems in between.
all the bar topics, right? So no religion,
Yes,
no sex, no politics.
absolutely.
I think it's very smart to leave that outside. Um, it can get weird. I think we've all had sessions where a client brings something up and we respond as if we're in just a casual situation, and then things get slightly strange because we disagree
Yeah,
on something.
yeah, it just
Um,
gets a little crooked. It
yeah.
feels weird. It feels different.
Now, sometimes people really appreciate that, though. I think it's important to read the room. Like, I have
Yes.
plenty of friends that I disagree with politically, but we just, we kind of know where each other stands, and they almost respect you for, voicing your opinion in a way.
As long as they
But
have that, absolutely.
yeah, but I think in those situations, you really have to know the person pretty well already. You have to have a good working relationship before you even dare to venture into something like that.
Totally.
That's fucking rocky waters there.
It definitely is, dude. All the way down to family. I mean, it's always been like the golden rule at family meetings, but I've had
Yeah.
people come in before who, maybe we are on the same page and they start spouting off about stuff. Then I guess you could say leverage that. That kind of comes into being a good hang,
Yeah. Oh,
and
if
if
you
it's
agree,
something
it's
that it's,
super easy. It's great
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
then
it's
then you
natural
instantly
feeling.
you have an in with that person, right? And like
Yep.
not even in a false way. That's like you already have a genuine connection with that person if you agree on things like that. But I think the
Absolutely.
the main takeaway is that you don't have to agree on everything. I mean, we're with what we do, we record people with making all types of music,
Yeah.
so we can't expect all of them to think exactly the same as us.
Yeah, and we're
I
not
mean,
politicians too, so
no,
arguing about that
no,
case through your job, it's not a very good vehicle to make a point.
not at all. Not at all. I think that it's best left outside the studio when possible. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, absolutely. So, another part of being good hang, I would say, is just listening to people. Just if they have let's say if they say they want their music to sound a certain way, just showing genuine interest in that. Like I used to make a mistake early on where I wouldn't ask for references for some reason,
Hmm.
and because of that, I felt like I got more projects kind of, I had more revisions coming in over time. But
Yeah.
as I got better at the process, I realized that, if we cover all that ground up front and I listen to their opinions right away on, what they think, what kind of production they want. Do they want it big? Do they want it kind of minimal? Do they want the kick to fucking hit you in the chest? Like things like that. What do they want their guitar tone to sound like? I feel like you're able to tackle the project in a much more efficient manner and everybody walks home happier.
Of course, man. That didn't work its way into my process till probably like 2 years ago as well,
Mm.
where I would say things like pre-production, but to me at the time that just kind of meant like editing and recording, maybe
Yeah,
a
which are
couple of like
important.
Facebook messages, but I feel like now that's really a part of the larger picture. Whereas
Yeah.
pre-production is like meeting with them. I like to hear the music and really like start that kind of like being a good hang process. At the same time,
Hmm.
also know what I'm getting myself into and what's expected and what they
Yeah.
want. They're musicians and they're really emotional about what they create. So you want to make that as accurate as possible.
Well, speaking of being a good hang, I think there's another topic close by that we should probably bring up just to be honest with people is drug use in the studio
Oh my
because it's
gosh,
music,
yes.
it's music and it's going to be around, right? There's no way to avoid it. Um, what are your opinions on drug use in the studio? Do you think engineers should or shouldn't use drugs? Is there a way to responsibly use drugs with your clients? Do you think it's a good bonding exercise? Do you think it turns them off with them? What do you feel with that?
That's a lot to unpack with my
Yeah,
experience.
that's a ton.
I in my paperwork state no illicit substance
Smart.
abuse or use in the studio on the premises because there's been some occasions where people come in too lit to work and it dampens the mood. It's more conversing about the what's the word, psychology and stuff of life, I suppose, or like philosophies of life, if you will, and I'm not against that by all means. I love deep, good conversation. Um, but I come into these sessions with the intention of like working. That's what I'm looking forward to with that eight
Yes,
hour block or 4 hour block. And to have that dampened like that's kind of a letdown, paid or not.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely,
but
absolutely.
within reason, I understand a beer can help, or maybe if you want to smoke
Sure.
some weed, that can totally like really get you in the zone because I used to smoke all the time and it got me in
Yeah.
the zone.
We should
Um,
also specify that, you live in California where weed is recreationally legal, and
it is.
I live in Maryland where weed is medically legal. So a lot of people can legally do these substances.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd rather see people smoking weed or moderating their drinking than hard substances. I've encountered that. I feel like
Absolutely.
more than I've encountered weed in the studio outside of my own use. And
Yeah.
if it does come to it, common things: don't smoke in the studio, preferably. Don't put your beers on the desk, and
Yeah.
within reason. Don't let it mess with your ability to perform.
When I was younger, I used to, when I was working out of a bedroom in college, I used to allow people to smoke in my room. And occasionally I'd have clients come in there that weren't smokers and they'd be like, smells in here. And that kind of
Yeah,
stuck with me. Like I don't want to be the guy who has the smelly, gross, smoky studio. I like
no
to be super,
kidding.
super clean.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think staying away from harder stuff in general is just good life advice. I don't think people should really fuck with that stuff, honestly. And even with
totally.
things that, are gaining traction like psychedelics, I don't think it's smart to really come to the studio on something like that because you're paying for your time. You're trying to get work done. Go
No
have your fun
kidding.
after. Don't fucking do that here.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
it's not
I
the
feel the
time to
same
do that
way.
here.
And
Yeah.
to be, the sober one in that scenario, it's
Mm.
not very exciting to have to like. It's almost like babysitting to some
It's
degree, and I
it's
don't want to demean
exactly
it,
like
but
babysitting. It's
it's
exactly
a
like
headache.
babysitting. I
And
agree.
back to something you said earlier, having a clean space too. That could be a good first impression. Having a good smelling, clean floor, organized space. I know you're like working with your desk, and you're probably coming out of a project, so you're gonna have pens and stuff all over, but um, my space used to be messy, and I have cats in the room next to me, and they're
Mm.
indoor cats.
Yeah.
So a client came in one time and told me that the place kind of smelt and it could use a little cleanup. And I
Yeah.
kind of like my space messy, I leave stuff, and I don't know why I like it. I know where everything is, and it's a vibe to me to be like,
That's a
okay, well, I'm
very
using this, and
typical That's very typical of men.
Yeah,
To be able
naturally,
to have a mess and
absolutely.
know where everything is still. That's super, super typical. You see that joke all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
I'm the
having
same
that,
way, but yeah, I try to keep it as clean as I possibly can now because it just gives a bad impression. It makes it
it
seem
really
like you're messy.
does.
Like there will always be like, there's always going to be stray guitar picks on my desk. There's going to be
Yes.
chapstick. I don't fucking know. Like I always use chapstick, but I try to keep the
Hmm.
clutter as little as possible. I don't think it serves a purpose. I think it can
Yeah,
actually get in the way after a certain point where, you go to reach for a cable and your cable's all fucking jacked up and
of
bent and
course.
stuff. You have to
Start
uncoil
knocking
it
things
first.
off the desk and
Yeah.
just it gets a little chaotic and it gives me like some
Yeah.
anxiety after a while too. Like I started cleaning and being like as clean as I could be, organized with what I have. And when it would
Yeah.
get messy after that, it's just I'm not in my feng shui. The process is like it feels a little rocky on the edges.
I think a small detour we could take here, just because I thought about it, is how it's important to have things easily available to you in your space.
Mm,
Because if an instrument or if, a piece of gear requires even the tiniest little bit of setup before you use it, you're going to use it less. It incentivizes you not to use it as much because it kills your workflow. So
totally true.
for example, I have my MIDI keyboard always on its stand ready to go. It's always plugged into my computer. I just because my guitars are right over here. I always have a DI box plugged in with a 1/4 inch, in it. Um, the thing I'm bad about now is I don't, my room's a little small. I don't have space to put my pedal board out all the time. So my pedal board
Mm,
doesn't get used as much. I spent a
yep.
lot of money on those pedals and they sound good, but fuck it. I can make it sound good in the computer in like 2 seconds.
A lot of
So
those plugins are pretty darn good, dude.
they
They
are.
really are, but nothing beats the physical pedal, the physical knobs, you know. I feel like there's
Sometimes,
just something about that that feels great.
yeah, sometimes plugins have features that pedals don't. But let's try to stay on topic now because now we're straying from the we're straying from the actual
Going on a
topic at
tangent
hand.
here.
So I think another one, a big one, is empathy. Empathy is really huge. How many times have you felt like you had to play, therapist as you're with clients?
85 to 90% of the time after a
Always, right?
certain threshold of really like I guess getting to know each other. I don't know if that would be
Yeah.
really on like a threshold, but I feel like there's a line of comfortability where sometimes things start coming out that I have to like turn that part of my brain on and like it's like I totally switch gears kind of for a second, you know, to have to like listen and think of something to respond with that is empathetic.
It's hard when you're being analytical and you're editing audio to turn on that other part of your brain and be like, oh, I have to respond like a human being now. I can't just go
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah.
I can't just go like, do that again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I completely understand. I mean, I've had clients come in even before I really knew them. Within 10 minutes, they're telling me about, how horrible the last 5 years of their life have been. And I
Yeah.
don't know why that is. I guess it's because music is so vulnerable and emotional. But yeah, people come in here and they just vent out their problems, whether it be
Oh,
through the
no
music
kidding.
or directly to me. And that's just part of the job. That's okay. I
Absolutely.
don't mind it. I don't mind it because I think it's when they do that, they're placing their trust in you, and that's only
Yeah.
good for your relationship with that person. It might be a
Really is.
little, might be a little much at first, but it's only good in my opinion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. First I was really bad with hearing certain things cuz like your scenario, I'd have someone I just met like a couple of days ago tell me this horror story and I feel like, you know, maybe it was taken well cuz we're still friends and I mean, we don't really work together anymore. It kind of fell off the map, but looking back, I feel like I could have handled that a little differently to maybe where that relationship would still be tighter via music.
How so do
Um,
you think you could have handled it better? What did you, how did you respond and what did you think you could have done better?
so it wasn't from like a it wasn't like I wasn't feeling empathy, you know what I mean? It was just like such an off the wall thing to say when you have met someone, maybe for like a couple of weeks, I think at the time. I didn't know what to respond with, so I all I could really say was, "Man, like that's a bummer. I feel bad for your situation, man, and I wish I had something more to say, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know how to like respond. So it's kind of like a muscle I've had to work out over the years of just knowing people and even people that I have known for long strings of time. They go through shit, you know, shit happens, life happens. And to like build that empathetic muscle to where you can actually use it like effectively and actually kind of like promote the empathy to them more and actually be genuine about it too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think being genuine is our next topic. What a good transition. Look at you. God
Not
damn.
so bad.
So yeah, being genuine. Fuck.
So important.
Not lying to people.
Yes.
That's
Oh
huge,
God,
you
yeah.
know? Just being exactly who you are to that person. If you're a piece of shit, that sucks. You're not going to make it in this industry. Maybe you will. Maybe you're amazing and you're a piece of shit. But for
Yeah.
the rest of us, we have to be genuinely nice people
And
because we have to
it's
build
so
these
much easier
relationships with random
anyways.
people. It is
Yeah,
so much,
exactly.
and it's so much more rewarding when you actually care about the person you're recording. I mean, when, and this also ties in, with not being greedy, which is something else we need to talk about. I've had plenty of clients, something will come up and the project has to go on hold for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, your gut response is like, ouch, my wallet, right? But
yes,
my genuine response as a human being is usually like, dude, take care of yourself. Like,
of
make
course.
sure you're good first. Because like this music is going to be here. We'll have fun with this when we can. But like, seriously, get your life set first. That's more important. And I think people really appreciate that. I would appreciate that if somebody said it to me.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't want to have somebody go like, well, you just fucked me over for the next couple of months. Like that's the worst thing you can say to somebody when they're already in a bad situation.
Yeah. Sometimes the tables are turned though to where that's done like vindictively, if that's the right word, where it's almost ill intent, where they want to set something up and back off their word, that damages the relationship there.
Well, there's an easy way to avoid people like that. They tend to disappear the more money that you charge.
Yes, this is true.
You tend not to get people who are so flaky when you're charging maybe not a premium price, but you're charging a respectable price, certainly, which is another topic for another day as well. We're going off the fucking rails right now.
It just goes both ways, There's people out there who will load you up with a bunch of like crap sometimes, and I feel like you learn to see through it, and I still try and respond with something human, like you were saying, and genuine, to keep them there. Maybe things just got a little rough, and it's hard to bring yourself to say certain things to certain people, and that's okay. Like, I'll be here for you when you're ready, and just like you would be there for me when I'm ready, kind of thing. The feeling's mutual. I would hope you would do the same for me.
Well, you take care of your clients, and they end up taking care of you. It might take them, longer than you had originally planned, but people always come back around if you've treated them nicely.
Of course.
They always do. I've had clients disappear for 2 years at a time sometimes, and then they'll randomly come to me and go, hey, we're doing an album, we want to do it with you. And it's like, well, that's fucking great.
That's awesome.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
You can't expect people to be in every single month. When it does happen, it's amazing. But
oh yeah,
it's just not a realistic expectation of musicians and bands. I mean,
totally.
not at all. Yeah.
I feel like it's annually, it's every 6 months.
We can talk about, I suppose we're already talking about it, but not being greedy is kind of what we're getting at, right? Like money is really important. And I think charging your worth is important. And we have a whole other day planned for that. But at the same time, making sure you're priced competitively, you're not undercutting the people around you so they don't think you're a piece of shit, which is huge.
It is. Absolutely.
But, also, making sure you're not overcharging, because there are other places people can go. And if you're greedy and you charge for everything, people aren't going to put up with it. If you have in your contract, 2 revisions free, the rest of the revisions are hourly, and they hit you with the 3rd revision that's simply like, hey, do you think you could lower the vocals just a tiny bit? Is it really worth charging?
Just give it back
that?
to him.
Just give it back to him. Be a nice fucking guy. That's gonna take you fucking 10 minutes tops. It's not.
It gives you good rapport too. To know. Yeah. They say, oh, like, well, no charge. Like, that's cool. Like that resonates in some small way.
I think it's better to have a stricter upfront appearance and be able to be flexible than it is to have an appearance where people can walk all over you. Because then it's harder to become stricter down the line, because they're just not used to that. They don't think you're going to be like that.
Yeah.
If you set yourself up to look like a professional, then you kind of have the freedom to wiggle around however you want.
Of course. I feel like that's the beauty of a contract.
Here, go ahead and talk for a second. I got to move this fucking mic up. It keeps falling.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. I feel like with, on the topic of being greedy, I've seen some people, I guess it's kind of back to being a good hang, as well as providing a good service too. You can charge what feels fair to you and what's fair for your market, but you can't under deliver with a poor product or a poor service as a person. Those people aren't going to want to come back because it just wouldn't make sense. The efficacy of the whole process isn't there. And there is a line to walk, between charging what you're worth up, your personal premium price, I suppose, maybe not market premium price, but a price
Yeah.
that is fair and not too much to where you can still get people in the door, but also handling it with that upfront kind of, appearance there, to just handle all the crap, like right out the gate, right at first. And it's not a bunch of crap, but like get all that stuff taken care of. Like, I guess your policies, your
Yeah.
hours, your rates, your
Contracts.
hourlies.
Yeah. I think boundaries are really important.
I
think
agree,
they're super
man.
important. I think it's actually one of the most important things in any friendship, not even just business, I think being able to tell people, hey, like, this is after work hours, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not even that good at this. I have people who will message me at like midnight sometimes talking about work. I'm like, I just respond like, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
but ideally, I think it's better to just be like, hey, let's talk about this tomorrow,
Yep.
and just kind of drill it into their heads, like, now's my me time. If you want to hit me up as a friend and you just want to bullshit now, sure, I'm down.
Totally.
Give me a call. We'll talk for fucking half an hour, an hour. I
Yeah.
love talking to people.
Yeah, it's
great.
awesome.
I'm not a particularly social person, but talking with the people I record or my friends is not hard because we all like music. There's always something to talk about with like the artsier crowd for me.
Yeah.
It's the normal people that fucking scare me.
I feel
I
that.
can't be in a room with them. They freak
Yeah.
me out.
Especially at like way far after work. You're already wanting your alone time in peace, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to continue pushing yourself to be there and be, conversationable, conversable. I don't know what word I was going for there. Just
Well,
to be
I
like
think,
personal.
man, you're trying to pick all
it's
the
hard.
You're trying to pick all the huge words because we're on camera right now. Trying to
Hey,
act
you
all
know
smart.
it, dude.
Shit, dude. We just make some ignorant heavy music. Don't try to act all smart.
Super califragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah. So, boundaries. Yeah, I think one of the hardest things to do is when you start doing this full time is to recognize that the way you work on music is going to change and your attitude towards it is going to change. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to work 8 hours a day at a restaurant, 5-6 days a week, and then I would come home and work on music for 4 or 5 hours every single night, all the way up until like 5 a.m. or whatever,
Brutal.
And I'd go to sleep and do it again every single day, and I loved it. But I didn't love the restaurant, but I loved the music. But as I started to do music more and more during the day, I realized that I don't want to fucking do this all night. It feels like work now. I've already done this all day. Like, I won't work on a client's project and then immediately start working on my own stuff all night. Maybe occasionally, but not typically. I mean,
No.
past 10, 11 o'clock, I'm like, I'm good, man. I'm ready to start relaxing. I'll play a game or something, hit up the boys on Steam. Like, I think it's important to have that separation of that work-life balance, because this is all about like not getting burnt out, right? And if you get burnt out, the people who you work with realize that, and like,
totally.
it looks bad. You kind of come off rude, and you don't mean it, but it's important for the integrity of that relationship to have boundaries like that.
It really
very
is,
important. Man. Yeah.
Everybody's a little different, I feel like, too. I have some people who can come in and record for 8 or 10 hours and some people who can come record for like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I feel like what it really is maybe one person's focusing more on that balance more than the other. I don't know, but it's a slow burn for everybody, I kind of feel like, And I guess until you get past that point of the burn, then you just know at the end of a session, you're not going to keep pushing until you re-burn out. Because you're already burnt out. You did your work. You used your mental energy to do this thing for this person, with all of these elements that come into play with being a good person in customer service and doing your job efficiently too,
And music takes so much more brain power than people actually give it credit for. I mean,
of course.
Think about when you're doing pre-production and you're helping a band write, how many creative decisions you're making in a short period of time. I mean, do you notice how hungry you are after that? Like, you're fucking starving after that.
Hungry and exhausted.
Exhausted. So there's a fun fact, and I think I'm correct in saying this, but a chess grandmaster burns 4,000 calories on tournament day just by playing chess.
Really?
I mean, yeah. And musicians burn. I feel like we get the same thing when we have a long period of, doing pre-production or writing with the band. It feels exactly like that. I feel exhausted. I'm hungry. I've used my brain. I've used all the nutrients in my body to get those ideas out. So
Absolutely.
I forget exactly where I was going with this, but I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, it just keeping with that point that it's important to eventually be able to switch your brain off and have you time,
Yep.
have time just to be yourself and just to hang out and relax, fucking
Yeah.
relax a little bit.
Totally.
Life is too fucking short to just be stressed all the time. It's already
Yeah,
stressful
and
enough doing what we
spend the
do.
whole time working. Of course, you're doing something that you enjoy doing, and I would rather that than, like you said, work at a restaurant or like I worked at a slaughterhouse for like 4 or 5 years. I'd way rather be doing something creative with my time. But it's still work. There's still elements of that that are effort that
Hmm.
require effort and mental energy to
Absolutely.
make yourself do the thing. And some days that's just not it. I already worked yesterday for like 10 hours. I don't have to do anything today. And if I did, it's my own music. So I'm not going to
Yes.
do it. It's
Yeah.
nice to have multiple outlets in that way too. Play
Mm,
different instruments
absolutely.
so you can dinkle around and do whatever, clean,
That's the other
nap.
thing is like sometimes doing what you want is still productive even though it might not look at it. I mean, I played my guitar for 3 hours yesterday. I don't usually
Hmm.
play it that long. I just felt like doing it. I didn't really
Totally.
do a whole lot of other stuff yesterday, but this guitar just got set up again. I got more familiar with my instrument, experimented with tones, and like there's a
Yeah.
place for all of that, and you need to have the time to do that. I mean, God, I think I said something to you about when you were considering going full time and you were saying how you needed the slaughterhouse and how I essentially started saying to you like, hey man, like I know you feel like you need this backup, but unless you give yourself the time to get better at this and keep working on it, it's going to stay a hobby for a lot longer than you actually want. Like you need to
Super
have that
true.
that quote unquote free time to work on your craft, in a more casual way. It can't only be on projects. It's just
Yeah.
not. You're not going to improve at the rate that you want. You're not going to experiment on projects because projects like you got to get shit done.
Yep.
There's no time. There's no time to fuck around on a project. You're being paid.
Totally. You want to
Yeah.
move fast. You want to commit to these ideas, and those ideas. I guess ideas wasn't the right word, but commit to these tracks and these processes
Yes.
because you already
Yeah.
know how to achieve this one thing. So like, you need to just do that. That's
Yeah.
that's just the move.
Well, we talked a lot about work-life balance, which I don't know if that was really the topic of this episode, but I feel like it flowed, so we're just going to go with it.
Yeah. No, it's an
The
important thing.
the next one. So and we touched on this a little bit. When you meet with people for the first time, how do you like to do it? Do you like to do it in person? Do you like to be over the phone, FaceTime? Do you like to text? What do you think is the best method of talking to newer clients?
If I can meet in person, I absolutely like to meet in person. That's great. Maybe get like a coffee or a drink or meet at like the local reservoir and just talk and just pick their brain, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like we jump straight into pre-production. They'll just invite me to their recording room or jam room, I should say, and then we just immediately like, hey, I'm Andrew. Hey, I'm Chris. This
Hmm.
is what we do, and then we just start like immediately.
Yeah,
But
and they
but
just show you their music. Yeah, I get it.
yeah, probably 40 to 50% of my work is online though, and
Mm,
even though some of these guys might be relatively local, um, they don't come down. They just record themselves and send me the tracks.
that's
And with people that
convenient.
I've never met before, it is very convenient. I
Yeah,
enjoy that.
I wish I had that. I have pretty much all in person.
I feel like the in person, it would still be a good move to go in person. I would get the hourly then too.
You have more control when you're in person. That's the
Very
part that's
true.
nice is you can control how things are tracked, the standards things are tracked to. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
it's kind of a pain to have to explain those things over text.
it
If they send
is.
me something that's just booty hole and I have to say, well, try this, that, and the other, I don't want to seem like I'm controlling. That's where another apparatus, another big word for the camera, voice messages come into play. I like voice messages or video calls. Those are
See,
very
I
human.
actually I like video calls. I actually don't like voice messages that much for some reason.
No
I don't know
kidding.
why that is. Yeah, to me it feels you don't get the personal feeling of looking at somebody in the face so you can read their
That's
body
true.
language, but you're hearing their voice. I feel like I understand why you would consider that a better form of communication than text, but to me it's like it's this weird, almost like an uncanny valley effect where I'm hearing like this disembodied voice. I can't see the face. It feels like it's coming from nowhere, and I feel like I get like impatient. I feel like I could just read a text and get kind of the same result.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, I feel like the only time when voice works is either over the phone or FaceTime is preferable. If you can't meet somebody in person, FaceTime is the best. You can look at them straight in the fucking eyes, and they
Yep.
can look at you, and they kind of get a sense of what you're actually like as a person, rather than just via text. Text is so impersonal, and also with text, it's very easy to get off the rails. People will ask you very technical questions, and you'll try to explain it, and then all of a sudden you'll realize like they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And it's not really their fault. It's not that you've
Yeah.
explained it wrong, but like it's easier to steer the conversation, when you're speaking to them, especially in person. It's super
Of
easy to
course.
steer the conversation, because that's the one of the most important thing in sales I've noticed is if you don't make the sale very quickly, the sale's not going to happen. The longer you have to talk yourself up and explain your process, the less likely they are to come to you. I don't know why that is. It's just how it is.
I think we've talked about this before, and I haven't gotten much phone calls in, unfortunately, since then. I've been working with the same people. But, oh crap, what was I going to say? Conversation. Oh man, it was something about the coercing a conversation in a certain way via voice message, but it just poof,
Yeah, you're
disappeared.
fine. Well, I think when I was back in my day, when I was a waiter, when I was a waiter, I stuck to a formula with every table. I had I had my greeting, I had the things I would recommend on the menu, and I genuinely liked those things on the menu, so I wouldn't lie to them. So I was being
Yeah,
genuine. But
totally.
I had it was almost like a math equation, and if I followed that equation, I would do really well with that table. If I deviated from that, it was risky. Sometimes people would like if I was just a cool guy, and I teased them, or I said, well, I said a curse word occasionally. Maybe they really liked that. But other times, I did that and I turned the table off, and the
Yeah.
tip would suffer for it. So, as much as I hated doing that as a job, I feel like it did help me with my people skills quite a bit, because restaurant is sales super quick. You're selling
Oh
to
yeah.
8 people, every couple of minutes or whatever it is, whatever how big your tables are. Um, yeah.
I
That's
feel like that's a good thing to become aware of too. Systems in a way. Things that
systems.
you
Yeah,
can just walk with every time, a way you can just work yourself
yeah,
into a good position, or at least try to,
absolutely.
something you can verify is a successful way to do this thing.
Well, and it's not manipulative either. Like it's if you show your client confidence, then they're going to be confident in you. Like if you have a process and you are smooth and you know what the fuck you're going to say, that rubs off on them.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with lying to them. It's
No,
just
not at all.
it's just smart.
You
It's
know
just
your
smart.
work better than anybody else, and they're
Yeah.
already looking for good work. If you have a good looking portfolio, or a good sounding
Hmm.
one, more importantly,
Yeah.
and being a good conversation starter, being a good, what is the word? I still can't think of it.
Conversationalist, is that what you're saying?
Conversationalist. Yes, there
Sure,
we
why
go.
not? Let's go with
Thank you
that.
for that. There we go. Having good conversation, man. And I
Yeah,
feel like that's also a muscle in itself. You got to work, but you get better at
absolutely.
it in time. And it kind of
Yeah.
forces you to analyze too. You're kind of on the spot, to think about the right thing that's going to work from what you do,
Yeah.
accurately depict it.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of run that little bit of the topic into the ground. One of the biggest things I think your job as a producer is you are there to motivate your clients to get the best possible versions of their takes and their music that you can. So, how do you go about motivating people, and do you change your approach from person to person?
That's a good question, because most of the time I try and keep energy high, I suppose, rather than using some inspirational quotes of sorts. I was
Sure.
thinking about what I do for myself, and that slowly trickled into working with clients, but you kind of get into a routine, and by keeping energy high, you get into a routine where you lay down like a way that it's going to happen. So if you, guitarist, feel like you messed up your take, or the quote unquote vibe isn't right, just stop and say, I fucked up. Let me stop I'll hit stop, and we'll just punch straight back in with a click track, bringing you right back into that part again, and
Yeah.
develop like a routine that you can do.
Now,
Uh,
do you do that right away with people, or do you let people know that? Do you wait an hour or so? Like, how do you approach that? Because that can be awkward, just cutting people off like that. But
I
I
used
in my experience, they tend to appreciate it once they know it's coming, because you're saving them time.
Yes, and I used to be really bad about that. I would let people just continue on with a really messed up part and then tell them,
Mm,
"Hey, we got to redo that. Sorry."
yeah.
And that I didn't necessarily like get anything bad, like no backlash or weird looks or anything, but I knew in my heart that that was kind of messed up because they just wasted a whole minute, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll try and like discuss it first. We'll get a couple of recordings in of that part of the song, which is usually like 16 measures, so it's short. If it's kind of going rocky, I'll just say, okay, so this is how we can do this. I'll punch you in. If you mess up or I hear something wrong, I'll just stop it and tell you, let's go again. And
Yeah.
just tell me if you mess up. And I don't hear it, you're not feeling the performance, we can just start right over. It saves
Well, I
time,
think
keeps energy,
sometimes it's
things
also.
moving.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Oh, you're
That's
okay.
another
You're
thing
okay.
That's another thing I'm trying to improve on is cutting people off during this. I noticed during the first episode I did that a couple of times by accident. So
All good, brother. All
we're
good.
all
There's a
we're
lot of
both
talk about,
new.
lots to talk about.
A lot to talk about. We're both new to this, so it's different than just having a normal conversation with us. It's got to be like easy to watch.
Totally.
Yeah. Let's see. I think sometimes you don't have to throw the whole take out if one thing's bad as well. Like you can always save part of it for comping. I think one of the best things you can do for your client is make them confident in your ability to edit and comp, because you
Yeah.
make them realize that they might play this part 2-3 times, they fucked up here and there on that, but when we stitch them together it's perfect.
Yep.
Or this one note was early, let me fix this one note, and it's bothering them, like that fucking sucks. I got to do it again, and then you're like, hold on, and then you fix the one note and they're like, oh, that's perfect. Like,
Yeah.
that's great. It saves you time, it saves them frustration. It's so important in keeping the mood going, keeping the vibe going. Vibe
Yeah.
is so fucking important.
Vibe and momentum. I feel like in recording,
Yes.
just high energy. Back to like the very beginning, making them feel comfortable too,
Yeah.
not being too pushy, and maybe some inspirational kinds of quotes will come out, or I'll relay some previous experience I've had that helped me, and offer breaks too. I've had people who want to just
Yes.
push, and they burn themselves out really fast, and you can tell there's like a conversational attitude to things. And I always bring up, like, after a couple of hours, if you want to take a break, you could totally take a break. Like,
Yeah.
you need to like recoup your brain after a while.
Well,
Especially
sometimes
after
it's
one
smart to be
part.
the voice of reason. Like sometimes people
Yeah.
won't just allow themselves to take breaks. So maybe you're the one who goes, "Hey guys, let's take like 5."
Yep.
I'm gonna get
It's
up.
had
I'm
to
gonna grab some
happen
water.
before.
You guys want some water? You want some coffee? Just like simple stuff like that. Just
Totally.
just to if it's getting funky and people are getting tired and you can sense it, I think it's smart to like diffuse that situation.
It
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah.
And just
I
having that
think
ability, like you said, read the room.
yeah.
You can feel those things.
Well, that's another part of being genuine is
Mhm.
reading people and figuring out their emotions, and
Totally.
little things like coffee and water. It seems so insignificant, but like they'll remember that shit. They're like, oh
Yep.
yeah, I went over to that studio and he made me fucking amazing dark roast coffee. It was
Yeah.
delicious.
I mean,
Like
your restaurant experience says that all too, man.
it's
It's just
just a
those
French
little
press,
things that you
man.
keep doing, man.
It's just a French press with some fucking beans. It's not that fancy, but it tastes good.
It's the little things, dude. They add up to a better experience.
I think it's important to know, because I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I'm the opposite, but I know there's clients I can be pushier with because I need to be.
Mm, totally.
I have a client that is in the military. So he, like most military people, he's like type A personality. He thinks he's right all the time. He's a very
Mhm.
smart guy. He's very driven and focused.
I'm
But
sure.
sometimes when he gets something wrong or when a part's not working and I explain it to him, he'll just be like, nah, man. And I have to be like, dude, you're not listening. Listen to the
Mhm.
song. I'll just be like, listen to the part before it. Listen to the part after it. We have the same vibe going for a minute and a half. That's too long. I'm bored
Yeah.
listening to it. Somebody's going to get bored. Some people you have to
Yep.
be straight up with them. You just
You
have
really
to tell
do.
them exactly what you think. I mean, I've had people that I have to be very gentle with. People who are not that confident in themselves, and instead of giving them negative feedback, you have to just say like, "This is really good when you did that. You should do more of that. I think that's
Yes.
really cool."
Oh,
And you
that's
just
a
kind
great
of
point.
you kind of
Yes.
guide them to doing what you think actually sounds good, but you kind of make it feel like it's their idea almost.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's
Yeah,
absolutely right, dude.
yeah, absolutely. But I've had people who I remember when I started doing this. I forget exactly who it was, but I remembered hearing that Jonathan Davis couldn't get the I think it was the initial vocal to Blind on Korn, their first
Okay.
album. So the engineer made him like run around the block like 3 times and then come back and go in the studio, and then he immediately like did one take for the song.
Really?
So sometimes you got to do weird shit like that. I had a
That's a trip and a half. I
I
wonder
had
what that
a
did.
I had a 12-hour drum session once where we were doing
Oof.
all the drums for an album. It was so long.
Oh my
And
gosh.
after like 7, we're going until 6 in the morning. It's going so late. And after a certain point, the energy was gone. And this guy could just not get
Oh
the
yeah.
song. And I've known this guy for like 6, 7 years. So we were all very comfortable. And I walked out. I'm like, get down on the ground, do some push-ups. He's like, what? I'm like, do some fucking push-ups. Do 10 push-ups right now. And he did it. And then I made him run around the block. He came back. He was breathing. He was like, all right, let's fucking go. And then he nailed the take after that. I mean,
No kidding.
sometimes that's what you gotta fucking do. You're almost
That's
like a coach.
amazing.
You're almost like a coach doing this. You got to know when to nurture and when to push people. And I am a firm believer of if I'm comfortable with the person, that's the prerequisite, right? They have to be
Yes.
comfortable enough with me to where I can do this and know I'm not going to hurt their feelings, because I'm not going to be rude. But if I know I can push you to get a better performance, I will do that, because I'm here for you. I am here for the end product. And I know that
Yes.
they appreciate that I care that much. Can
And
it
it's
be
never coming
overdone?
from a negative place,
Yeah.
Of course things could get kind of frustrating
Can it be
sometimes, but
overdone?
it's
Yes. And I've done it
yeah.
before. You have to learn the line and learn to tell when you're pushing people too far. But sometimes people need that.
Mhm.
Sometimes they need a little bit of a kick in the ass,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially people who are, tired after a long session, people who are stubborn, or just people who are shy sometimes. Like if you know them
Yeah.
really well, you can gas them up and just be like, you got to do it again. They're like, dude, fuck, we've taken this like 5 times. I'm like, yeah, but I know you can do better. You've done.
Yep.
I go back to earlier in the song. I'm like, look at what you did here. That's so fucking good. Don't fucking lie to me and tell me you can't do
Totally.
this. I know you can. And they like that shit. So I think yeah, I don't think that's being manipulative either. I think I'm being very genuine when I say that to people. I don't
I
make people
agree.
do things I don't believe they can do.
And
But
what
if
you're
I know
doing,
you
like
can
you
do it, I'm gonna make you do it.
yeah, of course. I mean, like you said, if you've done it once, you could do it before.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing is serving the music. You're developing that end product, because you don't want to end up having these subpar recordings naturally,
Yeah.
or things you can't comp, performances that are so bad they don't work.
Ah, dude.
You want to have something that's stable and workable,
Yeah.
and that you can use, naturally. Like, of course, you want it to sound great.
Speaking of that, and this is a small tangent, but to anybody listening, if you're actually one, if you've listened this far, thanks so much. That's
Yeah,
fucking awesome.
love you.
But two, after you are finished your tracking session and you feel like it's perfect, take like 5-10 minutes and then fucking listen to it, because I guarantee
Yes.
you there's going to be something that you missed. And if they go home and you don't have time to fix it, you're going to fucking be kicking yourself. It sucks, especially with drums. If the drummer packs up his shit and leaves, you are never going to get that kit to sound the same way. You are fucked. So
Oh,
don't do that.
man. I couldn't
Make sure
imagine.
everything is
That's got to
done.
be pure stress.
Yeah, I mean, the way I do it with drummers is I tell them, we're gonna run the song 3-4 times, and then we'll just patch the holes. We'll comp it, we'll pick the best parts, and then we'll figure out the fills that we need to patch and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I think that's the best way to do it. It takes more time doing it that way than just editing it later. But I think
Yeah.
comping right away makes it, you make sure that everything is good.
Yeah.
So there's
Sounds
no
like you'd be kind of
surprises.
foolproofing yourself.
There is no surprises. Surprises
Yeah.
are the worst fucking thing, because they can just ruin something. They can ruin a really impactful part if you can't edit the drums. If the cymbals are always going to get all fucked up when you move something somewhere, like
Totally.
it can ruin parts. So yeah, oh my god, that's so important.
Listening
But anyway.
back, referencing in so many
Oh,
ways
yeah.
is so important.
But anyway, back to the topic at hand. We have about another 15 minutes that I think we got to fill. If we get 10 out of it, that's cool too. I
Awesome.
think the last topic we have here is a very, very important one, which is important in your client being confident in you, but also in just the session going smoothly. It is
Mhm.
being prepared, making sure that everything that you can have set up is already set up. I mean, when I have a client come in and I know they're doing drums, I get everything. I ask them what their kit is. I get everything wired in already. I have the mics all set up. So they just go down there, they put their drums down, I position things, and then we're good.
Totally.
I don't want an hour of downtime while we set up. That
Yeah.
just kills the
Kills
vibe.
the vibe.
Kills the vibe. If they come in and I know they're recording guitar, I have a channel patched in. They're ready to go.
Yep.
I have their project open before they walk in the door. It's just fucking ready.
And if
I
they're
mean,
new, and it's similar music to something you've done before, something I do sometimes is load up a previous project template,
yes. Oh,
maybe
so
just
smart.
bypass effects and then maybe throw them on and tweak a couple of things. So that way,
So smart.
with a lot of rap, it's a very quick process. So I sometimes
Yeah.
can give these guys a product by the end of the day. Maybe not a
Yeah.
complete one, but something to take home and listen to. So maybe they can come back and we can redo something, or they can give me their opinions and thoughts. It's about optimizing your workflow before they're there if you can.
I love project presets. If
It's
you have worked
amazing.
with the band enough to where you feel like you nailed one of the mixes, use that as a template.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Go back and do things differently, certainly, but why not? You've
That
got
frees
killer
you up
guitar
so much.
tones. You know how to get that killer guitar tone. Just
Mm-hmm.
fucking do it again for them.
Yeah.
Get a good bass tone. If they like that sound, it really is like the acronym KISS, like keep it simple, stupid. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you record. There's no
No.
reason. Every recording is going to sound different anyway, just by the nature of, it's a different day. Mic pre's are set up differently. You're
Yeah.
recording drums on separate days if you're doing that. There's no reason to completely reinvent it. It's already going to have its own vibe, just by the nature of it being a different project.
Of course.
Um,
You have something that works, don't fuck with it.
oh my God, yeah. I mean,
Especially back to client work too.
yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of, if I am messing with an amp sim, and I like to mess with the cab IRs, right? With moving mics around. If I find a
Yeah.
good place for those mics to go, I usually don't fuck with it anymore. Like I'll just leave it there. That's
That's
like, I
it.
know this sounds good. Maybe I'll
Totally.
experiment on my own time, but I'm like, if I'm working with a client, I'm like, I'm pulling that up. I can change the amp around and I know the cab is good already. Like the impulse response feels really good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I did when I worked with real amps. I would use the same speaker every time, and I would use the same two microphones in
Because you know it
almost the
works.
same configuration. I know it sounds good.
That's
Why would I
great.
keep experimenting? I got something great. There's no reason to
Yeah.
keep fucking with it.
If you really want to experiment, that's what old mixes are for. After something's already complete and out, or
Yeah.
write your own material to
Or personal
experiment with.
projects. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personal projects are good for experimentation.
It's like the key right there.
Yeah. I'm not so good at finishing personal projects anymore because I'll experiment and then not like it, but it's fine. I was just fucking around. Like it doesn't actually
Totally.
matter. There's no pressure, which is nice.
Yes.
It
Yes.
reminds me of how music used to be before I started doing this for work.
No
So it's
kidding.
still fun doing
Totally
it. Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you do to be prepared, right? I mean, maybe you have waters in the room for the client. Maybe if there's gear that you're going to use, like a pedal board, you have it out. For me, I have a MIDI keyboard in here, and it makes the room a tiny bit cramped if there's like a couple people in here. So I can just pack that up if I know we're not going to use it. Just fucking
Totally.
put it away. Simple things, but it'll just help create. That's the wrong word. It'll help make your space more inviting. Like,
Yeah.
you seem like you're on your shit. People like
Yep.
that. People
New
want you to be
strings
on
on
your shit.
guitars, new strings on bass.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't do much for live drums, but I'm assuming new cymbals, sticks, heads.
Well, you have an E kit ready to go at any point, which is
Yes.
great.
Yes.
I mean, that's honestly something I wish I had. I mean, I like live drums, but for clients who can't afford live drums, I wish I had an E kit for them because they could
so
actually
nice.
get their own ideas out without having to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other times where people come to me and they don't have a drummer, and I can just map something out. I know how to fucking play drums decently. I can write some decent drums.
Totally.
But, it would be nice, if I had space to
Yeah.
to have an E kit in here. Why not? Just
Yep.
to make people feel like the song is a little bit more theirs.
Yeah.
Why
People
not?
can be incorporated. I've had people who, when I didn't have my kit, I would always suggest sampling over MIDI than recording very subpar drums, because MIDI would just serve the music better than what the circumstance is as far as like room and recording methods.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do it, but I feel like if I had the kit, and considering now I do, I feel like work is more frequent with
Yeah.
bands because they can actually all as a band play their parts.
Yeah, that's important. It's important. Well, here's a fun topic. How do you navigate? We're doing this on the fly. Wow.
Ooh.
How do you navigate working with the band where one member is very weak and another member could play the part better?
First thing that I usually do or think of is, would want the stronger performing guy like to record both parts.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I suggest. Can you guys work it out to where your guy over here is okay with you doing that? Because
Yeah.
it would lead to X, Y, and Z result, as opposed to A, B, C, whatever. That there
Yeah.
could be areas that could use more and better performance. Plain and simply put, just a better performance. It would sound better. It'd be tighter, neater.
I know plenty of great lead guitarists who are awful rhythm players. Like their timing is just not there. You know.
Okay.
So I usually say, you know, one person records all the rhythm tracks because it'll just sound consistent. I mean, if you use the same guitar with the same guitar tone and you give it to two different guitarists, just based on how they fret, you know, how they push the strings and how they pick, it's going to sound different. Like, and the intonation's going to be off.
Yeah.
So like it's going to sound
those things might be small, but they make a tremendous difference.
Oh, huge difference. I mean, when you are listening back to a record, it's under a microscope. You can listen to it as many times as you want and hear every mistake. I mean,
yes.
I've had bands come in where, you know, they might not have a bass player, and I have a bass here, and I've played bass in a band, and the guitar player starts playing, and I have to gently find a way to kind of suggest that maybe I should do it, because you and I both know bass is, if your bass is bad, it's almost impossible to make your mix sound good. Like if your bass is inconsistent. So for me, the most important thing with metal bass is you have to have a consistent clank. It has to be about the dynamics. You got to control the dynamics with your hands. And if somebody, one, isn't getting the clank, if they're being real lazy with the pick, it's like you're fucked. That low end is flub. It is going to suck.
Yeah.
So
just, it's wild feeling. You can't control none of it.
The thing I like to say to my clients is, I am a tool. Use me. You are paying for my time. You are paying to use me. Let me help you. You know?
I recently started explaining that to people after we had this conversation before. Like, of course, I always try and offer myself as a guitarist or bassist or, you know, for creative ideas if it's kind of getting rocky, you know, but a lot of people don't want to. I wish more people would take advantage of that, because I feel like the records could have come out a little better with certain people wanting to be a part of the album, which by all means I understand, because that's the integrity too, and I don't want to step on any of that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with a producer. I think there's nothing wrong with a producer producing. This is what we do. Think about Metallica's most successful album, which is the Black Album. They went to Bob Rock. Sure, they already had those songs demoed out, but Bob Rock refined them. He's like, don't fucking repeat that part again. Because this part, because we're doing it too, it's the same thing I said earlier. You're doing this vibe too fucking long. I am bored. They're going to switch the channel. You know,
you want to keep things interesting and sharp, on point.
The more collaborative I'm allowed to be with clients, the better the music turns out.
Absolute
for
fact.
both of us. I mean, why go to a producer if you don't want them to have creative input? I don't understand. Just go track it somewhere. Don't. I am a producer. Like, I will be your tracking engineer and your guy who presses buttons and your robot if you want, but that's not what I am.
And that's
I have
no
ideas.
fun.
I'm a musician, and the fact is that as producers, we've probably written more songs than most of the people that come in to work with us, because we just work with more people.
Yeah,
you know, we I don't know how many songs I've written, but it's quite a fucking lot. It's more than I would have.
Dude.
It's more than I would have written on my own, because people bring me ideas. They'll come in with 3 riffs and we'll write the song together. I mean, So, and I feel like we also have more experience with a wider variety of genres because of that. Because you don't get to choose what comes in. It comes in, you go, well, it would be cool if we did this. And they're like, dude, you're right. You fuck with it. So I think, you know, maybe that's a message if there's anybody who's watching who's not into audio, which if you're not into audio, that's crazy that you made it this far. But
I know, no kidding.
But if you're going to producer, you know, understand that, yes, it is your music still, but they have good ideas. That's why they do this.
Totally.
They know what they're doing. You're paying them because they know what the fuck they're doing. Why do you think the songs they're showing you in their portfolio sound so good? Because they were allowed to produce.
Exactly like you said, man, we're tools.
Yeah, very rarely do I have a client that comes in and I don't think there's anything that can be improved upon in the song. It happens. I've totally had it, and it's very cool when it happens. But usually there's something I can add. And
almost every time.
Or you know, conversely, there's something that can be taken away that just makes the song drag. I mean, that's even
in so
better.
many cases, less is more.
Yeah.
In a lot of good ways.
Why have a 5-minute song when you can have a fucking 3.5-minute song? If it doesn't need the extra minute and a half, it drags.
Not only that, but layers and instruments too. You know, some people pack it so full.
Oh, too dense.
Yeah, just too much. You know, removing some of these percussions.
5 guitar parts going on at once. It's like, well, where the fuck is this all supposed to live? Like, this is all the same voicing. Where do you want me to put all of this shit? You
want the same tone, same performance and everything, you know?
Yeah,
or maybe different performance, totally different vibe for each part.
Yeah, which is fine too. I mean, I've done electronic songs of my own where it is like 4 different mixes in one, which is very tough. Where each section is
Oh yeah.
completely different instrumentation.
Oh
That,
wow.
that's fucking tough, man.
That sounds brutal.
That is 4 times the work. There's a reason I don't do that anymore. It was hard, not that fun. It was fun to
Yeah.
write. It was not fun to mix at all.
Mm-mm. No, I couldn't imagine. That sounds wild.
I think most people who do more sound collage stuff like that tend to be a little looser with mixing, just by that nature. But because I'm me, I wanted it to all sound pristine and all sound like it flowed together, and that was just
Of course.
headache, absolute headache. Well, we are approaching an hour. We're about 5 minutes out. So, Andrew, I guess the thing I would say is there anything on your mind that you didn't get to say?
Man, I feel like it all came out. That went very smooth.
Very, very smooth episode. Well, instead of dragging this out, I think this one can be a couple minutes shorter. I don't think anybody's going to yell at us. So anyway, guys, thanks for coming to the Wave podcast.
Yeah.
This is a
Appreciate you
podcast
being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, this is a podcast about freelancing and audio engineering. We're not going to get too technical. Maybe in the future, though, we do talk more about the actual process rather than, clients and stuff like that. We're still kind of feeling it out. We want to see what kind of content people will enjoy. But I know I'm enjoying having these conversations. It's nice.
Yeah, it's great. Always
Well,
a good time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming, guys. We'll see you next time.
Peace.